Welcome to Thrive Deeper, an ongoing conversation with Dr. Matthew Jacoby, author of the Thrive Bible Reading Guides, teaching pastor, and leader of the Psalmist band Sons of Korah. Join us as we go deeper into the Bible, discussing the passages as we read them together with Thrive. Now here's your host, DJ Paine.
Hello and welcome to episode 30 of Thrive Deeper. It is DJ Paine here, and on this week's episode, Dr. Matthew Jacoby and myself get into the book of Nehemiah. Or is this Nehemiah? Or Nehemiah? Or Look, however you pronounce this book, it doesn't matter. This is what we're going to be looking at over the next few weeks, and we know from you that this is a favorite book in the Old Testament. A lot of people love the book of Nehemiah and love this character. So stay with us over the next few weeks as we break it down and have a look at this very fascinating story and this fascinating character from the Bible. Now stick with us after the discussion. As per usual, I'll be with you at the end to let you know how you can help us out. And thank you so much for all the kind words coming through to us at the end of 2018, the first year we've been doing Thrive Deeper. So stick with us at the end of the discussion. I'll be back with you. But right now, here's Matthew and myself breaking down Nehemiah. So we're coming up to the beginning of a new year, 2019. Looking at the beginning.
2019. We live in the future, don't we?
Yeah, I know. I can't believe we live past the year 2000. That was bamboozling me as a child.
Yeah.
But 2019, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you do a bit of goal setting at the beginning of the year? Are you a little bit of a new year, take stock, set a goal?
Yeah. Not
That's the most
goals. Yeah,
that's the most unconvincing year ever.
Yeah, if I did, I'd say yes straight away, wouldn't I? So, I have. There are some things that I'd like to do. I'd like to do a lot more writing this year, and so in thinking about the year ahead, there are certainly some things I feel like I'd like to do a bit more academic. Writing. In fact, I just sent an academic article off for publication. So just getting
your writing juice
into
back.
That, a foot in that.
Yeah.
Which I've spent a lot of the last few years just writing courses and so there's this whole academic side to my life that because of the other things that I do can easily get crowded out. So I'm just trying to engage a bit more with it.
I mean, I know it's crazy asking the poster child for the overachievers, which is yourself, the overachieving people, if you've got any goals there because, but this year, I mean, we've got even the projects that we're doing that we're doing together, whether it's to do with, your books, videos, what we do here is the podcast, even Sons of Korah. There's a lot of projects on the blackboard there for 2019.
Yeah. Oh, I'm actually talking on a video I'm looking forward to because, we filmed a small group resource thing on the Psalms based on my book Deeper Places. So that was great to do that. I mean, I've been talking about filming a kind of video teaching series for a long time. And it was great to get that down. So we got some interesting stuff.
How's
the editing going?
I haven't even looked at it, buddy. I've backed it all up. I've backed it all up. I'm waiting for the powers that be. I'm waiting for our boss, basically, to get back to me. We've got a few more little finishing
watch
touches.
This space.
Yeah, we've got some great stuff planned for this year. I'm excited. 2019, red letter year. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have just finished off last week the book of Ezra. Got a crazy thing to put out there, right? As we before we even get into Nehemiah.
Oh no.
School of thought. Here's a school of thought.
Okay.
Was Ezra wrong in sanctioning or allowing the men to divorce their wives? This wasn't a command of God. God didn't say, thus saith the Lord, get the men to divorce their wives.
Yeah.
Ezra doesn't sound too happy about the whole process himself. He sounds like a bit of a misery guts through the whole thing. Is this
Well, it's a tangle. I mean, it's such a tangle. This is the problem with it. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah.
It's so and sure, a lot of people say just leave it. Okay, now hang on.
And just to give everybody context, Ezra is sent back to the exiles in Jerusalem from Persia.
Yeah.
He comes in. He is a Old Testament scholar. You know, he is a learned. He knows the law backwards and forwards. He comes in. He sees the state of the people, where they're at spiritually, especially in the outward sign of these Jewish men marrying pagan women. He tears his clothes. He repents before everybody, prays, and the people come around him and say, "Hey, we've got an idea. How about the 100 or so people that have married these pagan wives? We divorce them, send away the wives, even send away our kids that we've had with them, and we start over." And Ezra's like, "Right, let's make it so," and they make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the book of Ezra.
And the context, of course, is that Ezra comes back with all of these Levites and priests, and he wants to get, let's get this purpose back on track. Let's, we've been talking about this for decades in our exile. The exiles have gone back. And, he's heard that, things are a little lax back home. So come on, let's get this back on track, And to his shock, the thing that's going to undermine the purpose the most is the fact that they are integrating and beginning a process of assimilation into the empire. Now, the Jewish people were this tiny little vassal kind of kingdom. They weren't even really. They were like a province of Persia.
Yes.
So everyone else, where are the Philistines?
Yeah.
Where are all these other groups that we? Well, they're gone. They've just assimilated into the, and the same thing is going to happen to the Jewish people as well, to disappear as a historical fact, unless, of course, they keep themselves distinct, which those that were with Ezra in exile did. But he comes back to find that they have begun the process of assimilation. They have begun the process. This is the end for him. So the issues are really big. Now, did he do the right thing? It's such a tangle. It's such a tangle. What do you do? Sometimes there are some knots that get so complexly tied up that you've got to cut the rope. Yeah. And this is like, we've got to cut the rope. It's a terrible thing to have to do. So the text doesn't downplay how terrible this is. No. It's not saying this is what, it's just like, it's like this is the best. Well, no, not the best. This is the preferred of two really bad options.
Yes.
Okay. And now the first option would be, okay, we leave it as it is, but then we get assimilated completely and we lose our identity, and that's the end. End of our history.
Yeah.
Right.
Finish the book there.
Yeah, that's right. Finish the book, Bible, no Jesus, nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how important do we think these issues are? Ezra knew that they were incredibly crucial issues that weren't just about this people. It was about God's covenant with Abraham and the God's purpose for the whole world.
So yeah.
So this is the issue.
Hard.
So it was a bad thing, but
that concept that you talked about last week of necessary evil.
Yeah.
It's a heavy concept, but I think this is what an amazing picture of that principle in place here in the book of Ezra.
Yeah, that's right.
It's nobody's chosen option.
Yeah. And
to be Ezra, heavy is the head that wears the crown. He wasn't wearing the crown, but he there's no pleasure in what he's doing at all.
And I tell you what, from this time on, in Jewish history, the fact that there is still a Jewish people today, because this would, this is really the thing. From this point on, as harsh as this time was, they would never forget it.
Yeah.
And this becomes the thing that causes there to still be a distinct Jewish community under the Romans that still, let's go before that. There is still a Jewish people who are willing to fight for their distinctness when a Greek emperor, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, comes in and outlaws Judaism and commands that they become like everyone, but they are willing to die rather than do this. So, and this is, these are the, those who came out and with this kind of faith in the Maccabean period, 160s, in the 160s, when Antiochus Epiphanes outlawed Judaism, those that stood up against the might of the Greek Empire and eventually defeated them, they were the disciples of Ezra.
Okay.
Ezra. You know what I mean? That's why they're... it was a really tough thing for that generation to do, but they would never ever forget it, and the rest of the history right up to the time of Christ bears that out.
Right, now we get our, as we've stated a few times, originally and to this day in the Jewish Bible, in the Old Testament, which is what is it, 3/4 of our Bible, the books of Ezra and Nehemiah are one story, one collected works.
Well, actually now in Jewish Bible now they're separated as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
In modern times, but in ancient times,
because it was all about what could fit on a scroll.
Yeah, in ancient times it was all the one. Yes, it was the one book, and it seems to have been separated more actually in the Christian era that it was separated. Probably the same compiler. Now, when I say compiler, the sources would have been a mixture of historical records, and you see how all the letter in both Ezra and Nehemiah, you get all these letters included, official correspondence, as well as memoirs of both Ezra and Nehemiah, because there's sections written in the first person. But there's also someone putting all of that together. Yes. And we don't really know who that is.
So we now cut from this sad ending to the book of Ezra to meanwhile back in Babylon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're back in Susa actually. Yeah, further east in the capital, where it's just interesting the way that you get this back and forth. Yet another Jewish person. I mean, we've talked about Daniel, we've talked about Mordecai, we've talked about Ezra, all of these Jewish people in quite high positions in the Persian Empire. Here now we have Nehemiah, who's a cupbearer to the king. Now, the cupbearer to the king wasn't just a waiter. He was, he would have been a eunuch, but this is a high position. Yes. Because he had constant access to the king, and so yet again we have a Jewish person in a high position in the empire, in the Persian Empire. So Nehemiah receives a delegation from back in Jerusalem. It seems to be a kind of a secret mission, to bypass, because they are being ruled over. See, this is a part of sort of the province of Samaria, and we have seen, and we discussed this in the last episode, that in Ezra chapter 4, the writer here harks forward to something that happened. When he's talking about opposition to building, he harks forward to a time where there was opposition to the rebuilding of the city. That happens sort of in a kind of in-between period that we don't really hear about this in the actual story. So in this intervening period, this is between 515 when the temple is rebuilt, and 458 when Ezra turns up. Yep. There is this, they start trying to rebuild and it gets thwarted. The governors of the area in Samaria write back to the king. They say, hey, these people are rebuilding their city. Yep. King sends back a letter, stop them, right? So it seems like they go there, they stop the work. Not only that, but they probably tear down the work that's already done. So what happens is in 445, the Jewish people send a delegation, right? They think, okay, our neighbours are going to keep enforcing this edict of the king. So and they have heard that Ezra, one of their own, has this, Nehemiah, one of their own, has this privileged position, has the ear of the king. Okay, and it so happens that one of the guys that goes is his brother. Yeah. Right. So, what are we going to do about it? You can imagine the conversation. Yeah. What are we going to do about this? Our city's in ruins. We can't rebuild. Yeah. How are we ever, this is a disgrace, right? You can imagine...
Nehemiah's brother.
Yeah, Nehemiah's brother saying,
hang on, guys.
Hey, I've got some connections, actually. My bro is the cupbearer to the king. Okay, so they say, so let's... Hananiah's name is. So you go, take a diplomatic mission, bypass the officials of Samaria and go straight to the king. Let's see if we can bypass this so we can rebuild our city.
Now, can I just say, in reading Nehemiah, especially the first few chapters, it is such a personal, it's one of the most personal works. It is like seeing private diary entry, even little moments, the way that Nehemiah thinks. And I remember as a very young person, I'm talking like I would have been under 10 years old when I was first reading through the Old Testament, as you do, that's right. As a Bible nerd, as a child, reading through. I remember when I got to Nehemiah, I was like, I finally didn't feel like I was reading about some ancient people that I couldn't know. Yeah. I was like, this is a man just like me. Yeah. This is a man who's responding emotionally and talks just like me. Yeah.
And he has these little moments where he writes in the first person and he says, Lord, remember the threats, remember these people, and Lord, remember the things that I've done for these people, It's like what he writes is... It's like it's part of his conversation with God.
Totally.
It's very
so we get in chapter 1, we get, the gang from Judah coming back. They've said, this is what's going on. And he just weeps and prays and fasts, prays to God. He records his prayer. And then the following spring, he's there in the king's court with the queen, the king and the queen. He's serving both of them. And he's looking miserable still. He's still looking miserable. And finally the king goes... hang on, wait a minute, Nehemiah.
What's going on?
You're usually my happy little Jew friend. Yeah. Why do you look so sad? Yeah. And he, he says, look, I was terrified, but I said, look, how can I not be sad because this is what's going on? And then the king says, well, how can I help you? And I love the next line that he says in 2:4. He says, with a prayer to the God of heaven, I said, he notes that
this is his moment. This is his Esther moment.
Yeah, and he's praying as he's praying, as he's talking. Shows that heart attitude of what it means to live in reliance of God. He's whispering up a prayer and going, oh, Lord, help me. Here we go. If it pleases the king, and he makes his case known. And I love that transparency of his heart.
Yeah, because remember, he can't break the ice with the king. I mean, remember Esther, right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I've got something that I want to bring up. No, you just don't do that with the king. So, he's looking miserable. And the king actually asks him, I mean, this is remarkable in itself. Yeah. And, verse 4, the king said to me, so he tells the king about his city lying in ruins, which has been destroyed by fire. Now, this actually isn't because of the original destruction in 586.
No.
This is... this intervening period that I just talked about, how they stopped the rebuilding but went back and actually burnt down what they had even done. So, he tells this to the king. The king says, what is it that you want? And this is where he says, and then I prayed to the God of heaven.
I love it. I love it.
Because, this is his Esther moment. Yeah. He's the guy in the right place at the right time. Yeah. But he recognises, okay, just because you're the right, and I think this is a great lesson for us, just because we will always be the right person in the right place at the right time. This is the providence of God. But it takes a bit of courage. Yeah. It's not just, it's really easy. No, this took an immense amount of courage and boldness to both pray in that situation, but then to trust in the providence of God. And so I tell you, his prayer, it's interesting because his boldness is unbelievable.
Yeah. And his boldness...
What he asks.
He is upfront. But he's also, like he says, I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was terrified. I'm praying, God help me. But he doesn't back down what he feels that God has asked him to do. And even we know that behind the scenes, we're trusting behind the scenes that this, the ragtag remnant that are coming back going, dude, you've got to help us.
Yeah.
They've obviously outlined, this is what we need.
Yeah.
And he knows all of this.
Yeah.
And so when he lays out, this is what I need to happen.
Yeah.
And very practical, the Queen's like, okay, well, how long will we be gone? What's the plan?
Yeah.
Let's outlay it all.
Yeah.
And
he realised, and I think when the king asks him, what he wants, he realises, wow,
this is my chance.
Like, this is already, this is already kind of the favour of God, and so the king's, he presses in on this because, the king is being responsive to him by saying, how long will your journey take and when will you get back? So this is when he realises, oh, God really is working. This is the answer to his prayer. So he asks for letters of safe conduct and so forth. And then he also asks not only for not only that he can go with letters of safe conduct, but he asks for timber from the royal forest.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you get off asking for that? That's really pushing it.
Yeah, and we read a little bit later on that the king had also sent officers, horsemen, people.
He has a whole cavalry with him
to protect him
as well. So and he doesn't even ask for that. It just says the king also sent army officers and cavalry with me.
Yep.
I mean, talk about the favour of God. Yep. And then it says when Sanballat, the Horonite, and Tobiah the Ammonite, heard about this, they were really disturbed. Now these guys, we're going to hear a lot more about these guys.
These are the bad guys.
These are the really bad guys. They are going to continually work against this, but they've got to be careful. These guys are going to have to do this through really underhanded kind of ways, because through bandit raids and all of these things, because they can't make outright war, because the king has sent through these letters. So the first thing that's bold about this is that this is basically Nehemiah is asking the king to issue a decree that goes against essentially what the former decree was, to stop building. I mean, the unlikelihood of that is off the charts. So talk about an answer to prayer. It's really quite remarkable that that the king is favourable towards this. Some people think that the Queen may have had some, the fact that the king and the Queen were there.
Yes.
This probably, the fact that the Queen was there meant that this probably wasn't a more formal court kind of meeting. That
a very personal family thing.
Moment. So he goes back for 4-month journey, mind you. I mean, when we see, and he arrived back in Jerusalem. That's all we get in the text. But this is a 4-month journey. It's quite a task getting there. He gets there, and he knows that secrecy is all important here. He wants to hatch a plan before anyone knows that he's there. Now, why do you think that would be?
Because he knows it's gonna come up against him.
Yeah, that's right. He knows that. The news is going to get back, and I think he's probably heard from Hananiah and these other guys that Sanballat and Tobiah have got people in the inside, and we actually see that they do. Yeah, they've got people in the inside, and so he goes at night and he does this mission where he sort of surveys everything and comes up with a plan, so that by the way, he's made governor. He's given this authority alongside Ezra. Yep. Remember, because Ezra's here at the same time. So he's given the authorization for this project, right? In that sense. Yep. So he does this survey by night on his donkey there with everyone else on foot. He's walking around, comes up with this plan, and then he announces it. He brings it before the people. Yeah. So this is an absolute disgrace. Yeah. Now, notice that the main reason for rebuilding the walls wasn't for defense. No. It was to do with the disgrace, right? Because this is, it's not the insecurity which is the problem, but it's how does this look to everyone else? Because this is Jerusalem, which should be seen as the Psalm 48 says, this is the city of the great king, the joy of the whole earth, right? Well, it's looking like a bit of a sorry state. So he says, come on, guys, we need to rebuild this city. The world is watching. And they agree and they start building. They get to work. And straight away, these guys find out. Now, there was 2 and now there's 3. Now, I mean, these are the details that you sort of read over because they're just more names. But it says in verse 19 of chapter 2, but when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official and Geshem the Arab heard about it.
Good old Geshem. Oh,
right. So they've got another guy. They mocked and so they're mocked and ridiculed. So they're going to do more than that. Actually, as time goes on. Now, this Geshem actually is known from history. He actually is a very powerful ruler of an Arab league. So when you put these guys together. These are all the territories right around them. I mean, they are encircled by opposition.
And that is an important point to make because it's sort of, unless you go and look at the history of it, you just go, are these just 3 wandering dudes walking past? No. These are the 3 leaders of the territories around them.
Yeah, actually, all of these guys are quite powerful.
Yeah.
And particularly this guy, Geshem, is a very powerful guy. They have inside people. Yes. They have people on the inside.
Yep. They know the laws. They know the previous decrees of what the king has done. They've been responsible for all of this.
So this is a real threat. That they are surrounded by nations that want to oppose the building.
And now we finish off in our weekly reading this week with the end of chapter 2, roughly around that. And at the end of chapter 2, this is when we first get a glimpse. I mean, so far Nehemiah has sounded like, this amazingly godly, and he is. He's an amazing godly man. He's serving, in different capacities. We see his amazing brilliance in thinking and forethought and being ready and planning and all this different stuff and encouraging people. And then at the end, that last verse of chapter 2 is we first get this little glimpse of the fire that is in Nehemiah when it comes to him being angry because his response to them saying, the God of heaven will help me succeed and we are his servants. We're rebuilding the wall and you have no legal right. You can just see the seething anger.
He's very bold. Yes. I mean, he's really bold with these guys because he's not going to, and this is the thing with Nehemiah, he's not going to compromise. Because remember, there was a lot of, as we said from Ezra, there was a lot of compromise happening. Yes. Okay, we'll do a deal with you. Yeah. We will yoke ourselves to you in some ways, and that was happening even through marriage. Because of course the reasons why people intermarried often was to form different kinds of alliances, business, political alliances. So leading peoples, that's actually something we should have mentioned when before we were talking about the seriousness of these connections, the intermarriage, is that these are alliances, like they're tying themselves to these peoples. And this is a big problem. And so, these guys have people on the inside, and he recognizes. So he could have been tempted by that. Let's just try and get along with them. Let's compromise. Let's give a bit. No, he's saying, no, we're not going to yoke ourselves to you. We're not going to trust in you. We're going to trust in God alone. Yeah. And man, it's a bold thing that he stands up to them because he is encircled by these guys. Yeah. And what ensues really is a war of nerves. Right, because remember, because of the decree of Artaxerxes that is sent with Nehemiah, they can't outrightly oppose it, and yet they're going to send in the rest of the story is great, and we'll get to that.
We'll get into that
in
next
the future.
Week.
But what you see, I think we see something about Nehemiah here. He's uncompromising. I mean, he's a great leader. He's uncompromising, and he's able to unify these people. I mean, this is what a great leader really does. And I think actually the next chapter 3, it's the kind of chapter you read on because it talks about this person did that, and then a few meters up, this person did that, and okay, and this person mended that gate, and it's easy actually to miss, really, from chapter 3, all of these details, the level of unity, actually, of intention that is displayed here. I mean, Nehemiah is mobilizing all of these people to work on all of these sections of the gate in a relatively short time. It's an amazingly short time that they actually do this eventually. And it's a real credit to to the unifying nature of his leadership. So he's a pretty amazing guy, Nehemiah.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing guy.
And we're going to pronounce, I've heard Nehemiah pronounced many different ways.
Oh, okay.
I think I've got some dear Indian brethren who pronounce it Nehemiah.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well,
and I've heard it different ways, but Nehemiah is
well, that's just how how it's normally pronounced. And I had the experience when I went to Israel beginning of this year that the guide would say someone's name.
Yeah.
And they would say, "Oh, do you know the story of such and such?" And I would say, "No, what is that?" And then she would say, "Oh, you mean
Nehemiah?
Nehemiah?"
Yeah.
And she would say, "Oh, yes, yeah, okay, I'll call him Nehemiah." And I would say, "No."
Please pronounce it the Jewish way. Yeah,
that's right. I'm probably the one that's wrong. So these are English pronunciations. So
yeah,
look, it may well be that we really don't know how it was originally.
Exactly
pronounced in some cases.
Okay, so as we we've had that introduction, just the first couple of chapters, and we get an oversight here. Yep. As we go through this next week and read the rest of the story of Nehemiah, what do you want us to keep in mind as we're reading it?
The real amazing lesson so far in the book of Nehemiah is the way that this people get reinvigorated under this sense of purpose. They've become discouraged through opposition, so they scatter a bit. It's a war of nerves here, and they're intimidated into scattering, fragmenting. That's what intimidation does. It's like, in our lives we feel a bit concerned about what does the world around us think, and actually, it's by banding together as God's people, focusing on our purpose, that we gain a kind of a boldness that comes from togetherness, a sense that I belong to something greater than just me, and I'm going to draw boldness from that sense of that bigger purpose, right? Because there's something big going on here. And what Nehemiah does is that, like Ezra does the same thing, gets them back on track. And I think the book of Nehemiah really speaks to that. Nehemiah is the guy that unifies God's people under God's purpose. And whenever that happens, beautiful things ensue.
Nehemiah, get to know him, get to know his book. We're going to be sticking with him for the next couple of weeks. A fascinating character, fascinating book. So reread it if you get a chance to over this period here. Now, as we wrap up 2018 and we start 2019, I'm going to leave you with one thing. Head over to the website thrivetoday.net.au. That's thrivetoday.net.au. That's where you can order your physical or digital copies of the Thrive Daily Reading Plan. Also, you can give us a shout out. Jump over there, get in contact with us, let us know where you're listening from, and I tell you what, we'll mention you and give you a shout out in return on an upcoming episode. All right, well, that is enough from me for today. We'll see you next week on Thrive Deeper.
Thank you so much for listening to Thrive Deeper. We value all our listening community. If you are on Facebook, search and like Thrive Today page to get all of our latest updates. Our home on the internet is at thrivetoday.net.au. There you can subscribe to the Thrive Daily Reading Guide and contact us directly. That's at thrivetoday.net.au. Until next time, thrive.